Now, as sanctions escalate, the concerns about the economic consequences are also growing, not least the impact on inflation. Well, joining me now is Arise Business Correspondent Laurie Laird. Great to see you,
Charles.
Laurie. Let's start with the European Union and the UK unveiling further sanctions against Russia. Bring us the details of that.
Well, the details, I mean, look, this is a very big range of sanctions, and they're slightly different from each jurisdiction. In the UK, we have the sanction mostly of individuals. There's 370, including Dmitry Medvedev, the man who kept the seat warm as president while Vladimir Putin stepped down for a couple of years, way back when. Putin's chief press person, Dmitry Peskov. It's simply widening the net of people who may have become rather wealthy due to their contacts with the Kremlin. Now, you got to take what's happening in the UK with a grain of salt, Charles, because the UK was so criticized with the first set of sanctions that it announced. They seem to be very, very weak. And of course, the UK has long been accused of sort of turning a blind eye to the laundering of money or the least cleansing of money from all of this Russian money coming into the Ukraine. That joke about Londongrad is made all over the world. There are so many wealthy Russians who have residences in London, who have businesses in London. We saw those stunning images yesterday of protesters climbing into the house of a big aluminium tycoon, draping banners down saying, "We're taking this over for Ukraine." So this has long been a sensitive topic in the UK. Now, if we look at the EU, things are slightly different there. The EU was a little bit more aggressive to start, but of course the EU is very worried that if they sanction Russia too far, Russia will say, "That's enough, we're going to turn off the gas."
And I understand there's also been a ban on exporting luxury goods such as expensive cars and jewelry to Russia, and also restrictions on imports of Russian steel and new investment in the Russian energy sector.
That's absolutely right. And that's from the EU side, Charles. The UK side has announced a 35% tariff on Russian vodka. The EU goes a little bit further, as you're right, preventing investment in any sort of Russian industry, and that's particularly important with those natural resources industries that you have mentioned. What the EU hasn't clarified yet is what about EU companies that are already there? Will they have to divest? That remains an open question.
Yeah, that's an important question. But the idea is to make life harder for Russia's rich elite. Is that right?
It is, but whether this will be successful or not is an open question. And Charles, sanctions have a bit of a checkered history over time. Many people point to South Africa and say, well, that was a very successful application of sanctions. But that's a little bit of a one-off. If you look at North Korea, you look at what's happened with China with some trade tariffs, that really hasn't had the change in behavior that the West would have wanted it. Putin doesn't seem to be particularly concerned about the cost of living standards of his people. So how far this will go, is it just symbolic or will it really bite? Well, that's an open question at the moment.
Well, beyond the specific sanctions imposed by the EU, these latest ones, looking at the whole thing, all the sanctions from all the Western nations over a long period of time, the ultimate question, I suppose, is what difference is all that going to make or likely to make on the war in Ukraine? Do you see the Russians pulling out as a result of that?
Absolutely not, Charles. I think this oligarchy that is around Putin probably has ways to get its money out of Russia, probably has dollar deposits all over the place. There will always be jurisdictions that are willing to do business with rather shady characters. So I think for this coterie of very wealthy people, this will not affect them all that much. I think where the pain will come, and it won't be immediate, it will be for the next generation, a generation of well-educated Russians who would like to stay in Russia, would like to make a career there, and don't feel that they have any future, particularly if Western companies are picking up sticks and coming back to Western Europe.
Well, let's take advantage of you being here to get your analysis beyond sort of Ukraine about other sort of developments in the business world. And Nigerian inflation data came out, and inflation is going up, but by smaller increments. What's your considered analysis of that?
And inflation, you're right, only went up a little bit, Charles, to 15.7%. That's on a year-on-year basis, February of this year over February of last year, up from 15.6%. Doesn't sound like a particularly big increase, but a lot of economists thought that was going to continue to ease. Why this becomes so important, though, Charles, is that it's the first rise we've seen since May, and this is only going to get higher, not just in Nigeria, but all across the world. And it seems that all we talk about here in the West is inflation. What are central banks going to do? Inflation is so much more pernicious in an economy like Nigeria. And the standout from this data today was imported food price inflation, up almost 18% year on year. Well, as you know, Nigeria relies a lot on imported food.
Absolutely.
Now, they don't rely much on wheat from Russia and Ukraine, but if there's less wheat going around, the price goes up. That hurts everybody.
Laurie, thanks very much indeed, as always.